What's up, my comic comrades? Today we have yet another movie review, and I feel like over the last 3 weeks that's all I've been doing, reviewing stuff. I mean, we had the Godzilla review last week, we had the Swamp Thing pilot, today we have the Dark Phoenix, and there's still other stuff I haven't reviewed yet, like the Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle animated movie and Brightburn. Right up front, I wanted to address that this movie is being slammed by critics. It's got a 22% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. But where do I personally land? Well, I actually enjoyed the movie. Do I think it's the best movie ever? No, but it definitely doesn't deserve a 22%. In fact, I'm gonna use Captain Marvel as an example. That has a 78% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, and I thought Dark Phoenix was much better. The reason I say that is because for the majority of Captain Marvel, I was bored. And in this movie, I was entertained pretty much the entire time. But let me break down for you why I enjoyed this movie more. The whole opening of the movie was absolutely awesome. It literally felt like I was watching the 90s X-Men animated series. I especially love James McAvoy as Professor X. He is the perfect Charles Xavier. When they eventually reboot X-Men for the MCU, I still want him to play Professor X. He just hits those emotional beats so well, and he goes from being very caring to very serious. It's just all so good. I also had a ton of fun seeing all the X-Men fighting together, like in the opening of the movie and some other scenes throughout. It's just really cool to see all their interaction, and again, it reminded me of like the Jim Lee comics and the 90s X-Men cartoon. As always, I'm going to be 100% honest, I haven't been keeping up with my X-Men comics recently, and this movie made me want to dive back in. There's also a good amount of cameos. One in particular I thought was awesome, and this character may or may not appear in the Dark Phoenix Saga comic book. But hands down, the thing that made me enjoy this movie was the cool factor with some of the fight scenes. Jean Grey is so OP, it's not even funny. They really drive home just how powerful the Phoenix Force is. She was straight up Thanos snapping people. In addition to the fight scenes, there were 4 characters that really stole the show for me. Professor X, who I mentioned earlier, Jean, who I just mentioned, and then Magneto and Nightcrawler. Magneto has had some pretty cool fight scenes over the course of the X-Men movie franchise, but I think these are the best fight scenes he's had thus far. There was literally like 2 scenes he had that made me outright gasp, which was kind of awkward considering the theater I was in only had like 10 people in it, and I guess they didn't agree with me, but whatever. Then there's Nightcrawler. If you remember him from the previous X-Men movies, he's pretty timid, but something happens here where he goes all out and just yes. Yes, yes, yes. It kind of reminds me of that scene from X2 in the President office. That. I will also add that Storm had some great scenes as well. It really reminded me just how powerful she can be. It also got me thinking that whenever they bring the X-Men into the MCU, we're going to be in for a treat as we're going to get some pretty OP characters introduced. But now that I've been gushing over the movie for the last minute or two, let's talk about all the things I didn't like. The story was super simplistic. It wasn't horrible, but again, it was just very basic, and the movie also felt very rushed. That's actually my biggest gripe about the movie. They just tried to cram too much stuff into this movie, and it felt rushed. The Dark Phoenix Saga, in my opinion, if done right, easily has to be a 2-part movie. Also, the timeline was all jacked up, which was really frustrating. Like, if you're a fan of the other X-Men movies and you want them all to line up, you're gonna be pissed. I understand Days of Future Past messed things up, but this just made no sense. Then there's other little things like Beast. Don't get me wrong, I like Beast and I didn't mind the practical makeup. I actually like practical more than CGI a lot of the time, but the way they used them on wires I thought was absolutely horrible. It just looks so fake and clearly like a guy's on wires going like this. Same thing with Magneto and Jean. Whenever they flew, it's like, oh, so clearly you're on wires. It just looks unnatural. I think they should use CGI for that stuff. But overall, I enjoyed the movie way more than I expected to. Truth be told, it's probably because my expectations were super low. Like, I had no expectations for this movie going in. So I was pleasantly surprised that I was entertained as much as I was. As far as the X-Men movies go, I thought this was on par with X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past. So if you enjoy those movies, I think you're gonna enjoy this one as well. Again, I really don't know why this movie is getting crushed as much as it is. I do also want to add there is no end credit or post-credit scene, so don't stay. There's nothing after the credits because again, this is like the last X-Men movie we're ever gonna get in this universe. I know we're getting New Mutants eventually, but I don't think that's connected to this movie. With all that said, that covers my 2 cents on it. If you've seen the movie, let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or were you just mad about it? But as I always say, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Links for those are always in the description below. And if you like our reviews and just all the videos we put on our channel, be sure to subscribe. And I'll see you next time when I talk about all things comics.